name is Addie Skillman, and this is Loving versus Virginia, the stepping stone for equality in America. We never wanted to make a scene. We never wanted to be deemed civil rights pioneers or challenge the Constitution just for the fun or the fame of it. We never wanted this tragedy to come to life for us. No, in fact, that's the thing we least wanted. See, my wife, Mildred Jeter, and I had been good friends since the time I was 17 and she was 11. Both of our families had lived in Caroline County, Virginia for generations. So when Mildred turned 18 and got pregnant, we decided to get married. Now, little did we know how hard it would be just to get a working marriage license and some time alone. Even more, I don't think anyone at the time realized how important our situation would become to millions of Americans of all different races and genders who just wanted to be accepted for loving who they love. Now, the year was 1958. At the time, laws banning interracial marriages, or anti-miscegenation laws, had been in place for nearly 3 centuries. By the law, I was considered a white man and Mildred a colored woman. I knew we couldn't get married in our home state of Virginia because of the anti-miscegenation laws that had been in place there since 1691. So we drove to Washington, D.C. to get a marriage license. No anti-miscegenation laws were in place there. We were happily married in D.C. and ready to begin a life together. We moved back to Virginia to live with my parents, but our joy lasted none than a month. In the wee hours of the morning on July 11th, Richard and I woke to a start as the county sheriff and 2 deputies burst into our bedroom and put us under arrest. You, unlawfully and feloniously, did go out of this state for the purpose of being married to Richard Loving, the white person, and with the intention of returning, and was married to said Richard Loving out of state, and afterwards returned to and resided in it, cohabiting as a man and wife against the peace and dignity of the Commonwealth of Virginia. This violates sections 2058 and 2059 of the Virginia Code. This marriage license is no good here. 6 months later, our trial was held before Judge Leon Bazile in the Caroline County Circuit Court. We were sentenced to 1 year in jail, but worked out a plea bargain which suspended our jail sentence on the promise that we leave Caroline County and the state of Virginia at once and do not return together or at the same time to said county and state for a period of 25 years. We had no choice but to move back to D.C. And now for the next 4 years, we felt imprisoned, never being able to visit our home or our family at the same time, even with our 3 children there. Now finally, I had enough. In 1963, I wrote a letter to Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy. I thought maybe, with all the civil rights events happening around the time, that Kennedy could help us in our situation. Robert F. Kennedy received the letter and sent it to the American Civil Liberties Union, where 2 young ACLU attorneys picked it up. Their names were Bernard Cohen and Philip Hirschkopf. They went back to the Caroline County Circuit Court in an attempt to vacate the Lovings conviction. However, Judge Bazile denied their request. The man famously stated that Almighty God created the races, white, black, yellow, Malay, and red, and he placed them on separate continents. The fact that he separated the races shows that he did not intend for the races to mix. From there, Cohen and Hirschkopf appealed all the way to the Supreme Court. Of course, this was all very overwhelming for us. We had no business in court. All we wanted was to be able to live together. We were in love. It's a shame when the rest of the world doesn't seem to understand that. Now, naturally, we didn't plan on attending the case, so when Cohen asked me what I wished to say to the court, the Supreme Court of the United States, now I responded simply and truly, well, the only thing that really mattered. Tell the court I love my wife, and it is just unfair that I cannot live with her in Virginia. And so, it was April 10th, 1967, the day of our court date. We will divide the argument. Accordingly, I will handle the equal protection argument as we view it, and Mr. Cohen will argue the due process argument. Now, you have before you today what we consider the most odious of segregation laws and the slavery laws. And our view of this law, we hope to clearly show that this is a slavery law. They violate the 14th Amendment. Now, the Virginia Code makes it a crime only for whites and blacks to intermarry. Well, there's no crime for Malaysian to marry a black person. See, the makers of these racial integrity acts were not concerned with the racial integrity, but the racial supremacy of the white race. The 14th Amendment states, "Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without a due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws." It is simple to see that these Virginia Code statutes violate the Constitution. 2 months later, the court case was decided in a unanimous decision. The Lovings had won. Now, not only did this court decision overturn the 25-year conviction that Mildred and Richard had, but it also struck down all the anti-miscegenation laws in the remaining 16 U.S. states that had them, now allowing the entire country to marry interracially. That's right, after June 12th of 1967, interracial marriage became legal, a historical triumph for all races in the states of Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, West Virginia, and of course, Virginia. In his opinion of the court, Chief Justice Earl Warren stated that the freedom to marry has long been recognized as one of the vital personal rights, essential to the orderly pursuit of happiness by free men. Marriage is one of the basic civil rights of man, fundamental to our very existence and survival. I concur in the judgment of the court. Now, this court decision was nothing more than a surprise and a relief for the Lovings. They were now able to live together in the state of Virginia without fear in their way, and that was all that mattered to them. However, for others, the Loving case became an unprecedented triumph. It opened up new doors to freedoms that had not been available before. Now, directly after Loving, yes, people were still wary about interracial relationships. Now, in fact, in 1967, a reported 72% of Southern white Americans and 42% of Northern whites said they supported an outright ban on interracial relationships. This has changed since, however. It was stated by a Pew Research Center that as of 2017, this figure stands at only 14%. As a result, today, over 17% of newlyweds are intermarried, which is over 5 times as many as there were in 1967, the year of Loving, when only 3% were intermarried. So, about 1 out of 10 of all married people are in an interracial relationship, totaling to 11 million people in the U.S. who are interracially married. Now, let's just say this is a huge triumph compared to the tragedy of only 50 years before. Well, not only did many people think of Loving versus Virginia as a triumph of love, but another step forward in the civil rights movement. In the years leading up to Loving, there was rampant racism in the U.S. An example of this is the popular 1950s television show American Bandstand, which discriminated against African-American dancers for almost a decade by not even allowing them on the show until it was boycotted by civil rights activists. And now, however, it's fairly common to find interracial couples featured on popular TV shows, commercials, and in movies. Some well-known favorites include Grey's Anatomy, The Walking Dead, New Girl, Hairspray, and even Old Navy ads. Well, even further, Loving versus Virginia has created many new realizations about marriage equality in America, most recently, same-sex marriage. The same ideas used in the Loving case have acted as a strong proof for people fighting for this cause. It is known that Loving's embrace of the right to privacy, protected by the Due Process Clause, sent a clear message that there are certain fundamental rights which cannot be infringed absent a sufficient reason. These liberties include the rights found in the Bill of Rights, but they also extend to certain personal choices, including the right to make decisions about family, about intimacy, and about marriage. This means that the topics addressed in the Loving case do not only apply to interracial marriage, but also to same-sex marriage. Successful same-sex marriage court cases such as Hollingsworth versus Perry and Obergefell versus Hodges have used this same reasoning. Now, Loving versus Virginia started with just one couple who wanted to be able to love each other unconditionally and without fear. Tragically, they had to fight for what should have been an inalienable right. However, Loving versus Virginia has since evolved to a monumental and life-changing triumph for millions of Americans everywhere. Whether it's giving them the right to marry their same-sex partner, or letting them see themselves in that ad or up on a billboard, Loving has proved to be one of the most important and revitalizing court cases in American history. And many believe that without the court case Loving versus Virginia, which challenged the tragic anti-miscegenation laws, our country may still be stuck in the times and beliefs of 50 years ago, and when races were divided and love was limited. Thank you.